Right now, though, let's talk about Extinction Rebellion. Those activists have been on the street since Monday last week across London, blocking bridges, blocking large parts of Westminster and Parliament Square. They were eventually all moved on, kettled up to Trafalgar Square before the weekend, ahead, of course, the Queen's speech on Monday. But they've now been told yesterday, it's time for you to go. We're bored with you now. Your peaceful protest is still an illegal protest, and it's time for you to leave London's streets. They have now been banned across London from continuing with those protests. However, the Extinction Rebellion activists have said they're planning to defy that protest ban. And even Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, set himself on something of a collision course with the Metropolitan Police as he questioned the decision to basically take a tough stance on those protests. Let's talk to Sakina Sheikh, who's a climate justice activist from an organisation called Platform, not part of Extinction Rebellion, but very much supporting a lot of their aims. Good morning to you, Sakina.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me back.
Do you think that the police were right to say enough is enough now?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think I am joined by a coalition of MPs, London Assembly members, and institutional human rights bodies like Liberty and Amnesty that say this is a chilling and unlawful decision. I think your news report have quoted it's an unprecedented attack on protests. And I think we should all be seriously concerned about this constitutional creep on our basic human rights. Protesting is, the heart. It's one of our fundamental rights. It's wrapped up within our constitutional rights. And the fact that we've seen the Met Police take this decision and lean on the GLA is extremely worrying.
And yet, of course, there's a constitutional right, a very important right to protest. However, because other people will be affected by protests, there is also a legal requirement that those protests have the permission of the police. It is inevitably given, but often it's given, it's a march for a day. It's a protest where it's not causing major disruption. The police have been, I think, really not heavy-handed enough over 9 days of protests that have disrupted London, disrupted a lot of people going about their lawful, peaceful business. And you say, this is chilling and unlawful. These protests were unlawful. They didn't have the permission of the police to be where they wanted to be. They didn't have the permission. These were illegal protests, largely, but not entirely peaceful. Is it not a bit chilling that people who, because they say they feel passionate about an idea, get to stop other law-abiding citizens going about their personal business?
I mean, I think that the illegal behaviour at the moment is squarely being challenged towards the Met Police. I mean, we literally, within 24 hours, have lawyers working on bringing a judicial review because this is, like I said, we haven't seen such a draconian crackdown on protests before. It is a
draconian crackdown.
Absolutely.
They've had 9 days of disrupting the capital city of this country, and people have been very calmly arrested, picked up very gently by 8 different police officers. Police officers. I mean, we've had police officers at Smithfield telling reporters, "Can they please be quiet because the protesters who are camping out illegally are asleep." And you're calling that draconian? You're having a laugh, aren't you, Sakina?
No, I think it's actually quite expected extension of what we've seen. Is Boris lied to the Queen. He lied to the nation. He has no respect for our constitutional sanctity. And now Preeti Patel...
Sorry, what on earth has this got to do with anything?
Well, I'll explain. Preeti Patel, who's in the Home Office, and many people have said that actually she has been coordinating with the police, because obviously that comes under her remit, to again extend this draconian style of government, one of the most right-wing governments we've seen in a very long time.
Okay, right. Look, Sakina, I know you're a climate protester, so facts probably aren't your thing. There's no way you can describe this. I mean, this is not it's not particularly right-wing. It's a conservative government, but description of this as a draconian right-wing government is simply, I mean, it's just simply got very little to back that up with. This is not an argument. I mean, are these protests about climate change, or are these protests actually about a Tory government? Which strikes me that a lot of this is what it's about. Because look, you've had the protesters have had their say. They've been on the telly, they've been in the papers, they've been on my radio show and everyone else's radio shows. They've made their point. What purpose is served by them continuing to disrupt people? Or is their argument that we're going to disrupt people unless or until everyone does as we say? Because if we're going to use words like chilling and draconian, I'm thinking those fit very well.
Well, I mean, look, I would welcome you to invite me back in sort of 24 hours when the court, the High Court, the judicial court of our country will be, I think, in consensus that this is illegal behaviour. And, I think just before you had me on, you had the news reporter talking about knife crime and the fact that 4-year-olds are carrying knives and hammers. And I think that one very succinct analysis that has been done by many people is that there is a disconnect and a distrust between young people and the police. And as an institutional body, they were found to be institutionally racist. So I think when you're trying to build back,
years ago.
when you're trying to build back that trust, to see measures like this is bulldozing over any attempt to reconnect and rebuild trust with society.
Hold on a minute. So
This
we
isn't their cause,
So
Julia.
we
This is not their
rebuild
cause.
trust between young people and the police by the police not removing people who are carrying out an illegal protest.
The only ones who are going to be declared as behaving illegally this week will be the police. The decision to implement Section 14 is extremely worrying and unprecedented. That's why within 24 hours...
Sakina, the protesters themselves are carrying out illegal protests. They had not have the permission to do those protests and to continue them so long. That's why they're being arrested. If I leave my wheelie bin out on the pavement for a day too long, I'll get fined. I mean, you can't just block pavements and roads and put a camp up and just move in wherever you darn well feel like it.
But we both know it's a constitutional basic right. That's what one of the brilliant things of our democracy
protest,
is,
but it doesn't.
Right?
No. But you don't have a right to protest 365 days a year, however you want, whenever you want, and just say because I feel strongly about this, everyone has to agree with me and do what I'm telling them to do, unless or until they do. I'm going to continue. That's not a democracy in operation.
Banning protest across London is nothing
They've
short
banned...
of
No, they haven't banned protest across London. They have banned the Extinction Rebellion, the organisation that has held 9 days, 24 hours, 20 after 24 hours of protest across London, saying enough is enough, you've had your say, now we're going to get London moving. That's not banning protest.
Do you know what I find particularly worrying, actually, and I haven't had a chance to mention this yet, is the dynamic between the Metropolitan Police that reports to the GLA and then the City of London Police. And actually the initial decision to ban protests by XR in central London was taken by the City of London. It's this sort of quarter-mile...
They want to keep the city going, yeah.
And no, actually, if you look globally, Julia, they have disproportionate levels of... emissions wrapped up in that 1 square mile of London.
They're not disproportionate. This is where all the big companies are, and big companies tend to often do things like are involved with fossil fuels. It's not. This is not a logical sort of shock to anybody.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. BP and Shell, who call their home within that City of London square mile, of course they don't want protests. They don't want people flagging up the fact that they are burning the planet. We've got... But
they're not, okay, they're not burning the planet. They're producing the fossil fuels that we use to run our country. They're producing... they're probably the sort of companies that produce the goods that allow you to be on a mobile phone right now speaking to me, because those precious metals have to come from somewhere and the manufacturing process has to happen, and then that good has to be shipped all the way here to the UK. Every single thing that you are doing in your day-to-day will involve some of those fossil fuels.
And I say to BP and Shell and the City of London, this has backfired on you. You have tried to suppress protests and ban protests, and what have you done? You've raised the profile of the fact that our house is on fire and you're trying to...
Okay, and again, I know if you're on the BBC or Sky, they let you say, our house isn't on fire. That has no meaning. There's no science to back up that statement. That is a meaningless slogan, and you know it.
Well, I think the science and the facts disagree.
They don't.
No.
Our house. If you mean the planet is on fire, it's not on fire.
Literally burned. In February, we had
the Amazon rainforest isn't burning because of climate change. You do know that, don't you?
Tell me about the north of England, the Yorkshire Moors, and in the South Down Forest in February. Why were those burning?
Genuinely, not because of climate change. And everyone, I love that everyone in the studio's got their head in their hands. Sakina Sheikh, I do love speaking to you, but goodness me, climate justice activist, whatever that is from Platform. It's painful. It's really painful.